OAKLANDER, gotta love that OAKLANDER, wanna see that OAKLANDER, OAKLANDER, Oakland TV. OAKLANDER, OAKLANDER, Oakland TV. East of heaven, with our new exit on 287, we can be seen on Channel 20, that's our Channel 20. OAKLANDER, gotta love that OAKLANDER, wanna see that OAKLANDER, Oaklander, Oakland TV. OAKLANDER, Oaklander, Oakland TV. We love it! OAKLANDER, Oaklander, Oakland TV. OAKLANDER, Oaklander, Oakland TV. We love it! We love it. Catch our fall season.
Good evening, and welcome once again to the OAKLANDER. I'm your host, Al DiGiacomo. Now that the intense political drama of the impeachment seems to be waning and the year 2000 is dead ahead, Americans seem to be reaching out to regain a sense of civility in our daily lives. But can a new civility arise as a new cultural revolution of the 90s? And what are the consequences to our individual liberties and freedom in our society if we fail to try to simmer the boiling point of civil discourse? We are pleased to have as our guest tonight Leo Thorne, pastor of the Ramapo Valley Baptist Church of Oakland, to discuss this very subject. Leo Thorne is a professor of English at Fairleigh Dickinson University, where he also hosts Poets Corner, a monthly radio show on WFDU on 89.1. Leo has conducted workshops in multiculturalism and racial reconciliation, and is a member of the conflict resolution team of the American Baptist Churches of New Jersey. Thank you for being our guest this evening, Leo.
It's my pleasure to be here, Al.
There's been a resounding call for a civil reconstruction in our society. Given the fast pace of our technology and the economics, how might this be reestablished?
Well, you used a good word, a resounding call. I think it couldn't come too soon. I think we have found ourselves in society today where we have noticed a change in our behavior pattern that many people describe as being not so much a sense of us being who we are as the good human beings that we are created to be, but we have lost a sense of being civil to each other. And I think in the environment in which we find ourselves today, where the me generation is alive and well, that whole sense of well-being has come upon us in such a way that it's kind of making us lose our center in terms of who we are to be nice people.
Sure.
And I think that call couldn't come too soon for us to take a check and say, hey, where am I going today in this society that seems to be progressing well economically, that seems to be in some way on the march, but yet we are leaving something behind, and I think we are leaving that sense of being civil to each other behind, and that's where I think we're heading today.
I think you hit on it. We've lost our center. Some of the barriers that were torn down in the Cultural Revolution of the 1960s have added to this problem of incivility today. The public schools are tied to the states, and they're tied to the federal government and the regulations. What are some of the changes in the early grades do you think might start a trend back to being civil to one another?
The early grades, that's such a wonderful place to start, because in some way we have opened the barn, the animal is gone, and can we actually pull it back? So starting in the early grades, I think, is critical. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, and that's where we need to start. But first of all, I think we have teachers in our school system who do an excellent job. And I think there should be special courses given to teachers, first of all, who teach in those grades, so that they themselves become not only aware of it, which I'm sure they are because they live in that environment every day and they see the acts of incivility, but to get them again thinking in that direction, so that they can come with fresh ideas, fresh thoughts, not something baked over from the past. But I think we need a new sense.
I think you're right, because there's got to be that blend between teaching someone or educating someone respect without saying, you cannot do this. Take those ideas out of your head. We don't want to just stop people from thinking freely and just be indoctrinated. And I wonder if we can have that balance. Do you think we can find a balance like that?
America is a great society, and we have always found balances. I mean, not only have we found balances, but we have been able to exceed boundaries. You know, you take the whole movement westward. I mean, we tamed the West. We are working at taming space now.
Oh, that's a rough one. I don't really want to go there tonight, Leo. But go ahead, continue.
But you understand what I mean in geographic sense.
Yes.
Yes, there are certain problems that our history we look back and see us dragging them still today. But I think we, as a society, we've been able to cross barriers and cross boundaries, and even fabricated into the very system of the American ethos is this sense of freedom and liberty. So we have built into the system the capacity and the resilience to break beyond what we are capable of doing today.
That is, it's a very funny thing that happens with that, because there are some libertarians that believe that they want freedom and equality, but just for them. And it really pains me sometimes to hear some acquaintances that I have in the libertarian fold that they're downright racist, and they only want freedom for themselves. And I just shake my head. I said, we cannot have it that way.
Well, is the sense of freedom a sort of pure, immaculate term? Probably it is, and probably it isn't. I mean, the term itself suggests that, yes, there is a freedom associated with the human spirit being able to liberate itself. But when you examine freedom in the context of human beings, that's where the struggle comes in. For ourselves, we have difficulty coping with who we are. And the libertarians, yes, they want it for themselves. The people who find themselves in the leadership position, they want it for themselves. The people who are the underdogs want it for themselves. But what we need to do is to find, using your word of a while ago, find a balance. How do we get the libertarians to hold themselves in check and recognize?
Not all libertarians, just a few friends that I have with strong libertarian views. I don't want to really confuse that.
Yes. Oh, we certainly does. We don't want to earn a sense of generalizations.
Right.
And yes, there are those who are labeled, but they're not really that way in terms of their whole heart and spirit. But there is a sense in which I think titles and labels tend to make us be what we are not. So we live more for the label than living for the human person. And that is, I think, also is one of the things that affects us in this area of civility.
One of the mantras of the 1960s was to question authority. Will we have to wait for a different type of political leadership to convince our population that they should behave with some voluntary restraint in being rude or crude or things like that? I mean, it seems that it kind of floats down. I've had many teachers when I was growing up, now not many, 3 or 4 that were outstanding to me. And I find that when I was in their class, there was more respect, there was more civility. So does it filter down, Leo?
I think you've hit the critical point. And to put the question another way, do we mirror in society, in the general public, what we see in our leadership? And that is so critical. Yes, we do. We tend to have this trickle-down effect in civility and incivility, so that when we look around in our political sphere now, we look around in the great financial institutions of our day, what are we finding? We are finding people who cheat at the highest level, on another level, people who earn salaries that are so astronomical that the average person in the street can't even comprehend sometimes what it means to earn that kind of money.
Really?
And we have the kind of behavior in people in high positions in our government. And these kinds of conditions and these behavior patterns in people, the average person looks around and says, if he or she up there in his or her ivory tower has it all and is still behaving like that, who am I? So we join the bandwagon without really examining
I'll emulate the leader.
Absolutely,
yes.
absolutely. And it's sad in one way because in that way we have sold our freedom.
It sends a chill up my spine to hear that, Leo. I hear that a lot lately, that people seem to be ready to give up this freedom. And to me, I see that we're almost poised. We're going into almost a prophetic or a self-prophesizing enslavement again. And many people, the economy is good, they don't want to worry about anything else. And I guess that's kind of scary because they know what we think.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think that demographics play an important part in the way people act to one another? Is it less in the Northeast or a little bit more friendly in flyover country in middle America?
One of the great things about this country is its beauty, and I enjoy the beauty of this land all the way from the west. And I've driven out across this country 3 times, got in my car and went all the way.
I've done the same. It's beautiful.
Isn't it absolutely lovely? And one of the things I like to do along the way is to stop and talk to the people in the various areas. And there are times when I reflect on having lived for more than 15 years in this Northeast metropolitan area, why it is in our sense of rushing around, we lose the sense of ourselves. You know, to be civil is to be respecting the self. And if we can't respect ourselves and value ourselves, we cannot be civil to other people. And one of the things I have observed in the Midwest, in some parts of the Midwest, and spare me generalization again, yes, there are bad, terrible areas all around, but is that people have time. And to be civil takes time. Time for reflection, time for people to look upon themselves and their place in society and in relationship to the rest of the community. So in the fast-paced world of the major cities, we tend to lose the sense of the self to rush to the next thing. And in areas of the country where there is time to come home after work and to eat with the family and to talk with the family, and mother is home and father is home, and we have an opportunity to share, I have found in those parts of the country it's a little different.
You're absolutely, in the rural areas, they seem to be bonding a little bit better because it may take them 45 minutes just to go to a Walmart or something. And I guess they do respect the friends in their little area and make the most of it. I hope that we can learn from a slower pace because where are we going in such a hurry, Leo?
Yeah, but can we learn? Have we let the genie out of the bottle?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
And I doubt we could pull that genie back. You know, you commute as I do, and we drive on the highways. You know, we see what's going on. People are now eating in their cars. They're talking on the cell phone in their cars. They're looking at the beeper in their cars. We have fax machines that keep us in touch all the time. We can get our voicemail at any point in time. And all these things are good. I don't think we should go back to the Stone Ages.
Of course
But
not.
I think what we are doing is allowing progress to pull us away from our center. You know, and that's one of the reasons I am in this religious world, because that is what, for me, in this case, it's a Sunday morning, and that's why I'm able to spend time with a congregation and to have people look at themselves again so that we are ready to go out and face the world as not being an island, but be in charge of ourselves as we look at the whole world around us.
To kind of recap about the fast pace that we all live in, I think if people just realize that if I am talking on the phone, not to devote all the attention from the brain to mouth, that you're just talking, get it over with, and or pull over to the side of the road. But with that fast pace in our daily lives that contributes to stress, and there's a situation coming about, which is the millennium bug, or the Y2K situation. And do you think that we are prepared civilly for such a threat? And I mean, it's a possible threat to our community, because if the local people don't have some, remember the civil defense of 35 years ago,
Yes.
the people who were under threat of nuclear annihilation, but they had some solace in their shelter, in their civil defense, because they kind of felt that the community was ready for it, which is that American spirit of being ready. How important do you think it will be to work harmoniously with our local leaders to avert this possible chaos?
See, I don't know that everyone knows yet the full impact of the Y2K problem. But if it is going to be, as prognosticators are saying, something that we really have to depend upon each other, maybe in the absence of some areas of technology, then I think we need to sit down and reflect on where we are going in with the Y2K problem. For example, if today you're moving out of an intersection, right? You come to an intersection, you're moving out into the flow of the traffic. How many times have we seen people without Y2K just cut out in front of us and go because they're ready to go? I shudder to think that with the Y2K problem, if we are not prepared for this in terms of how we respect each other, without that problem, what can happen? I mean, I believe we should really begin thinking about this in community groups, in churches, in synagogues, and mosques, so that in little clusters, we will plan to make a difference where the difference might be called for, and even though others might not necessarily be ready to make a difference, we in our little groups can begin thinking how we can make a difference if the Y2K bug really strikes.
We're going to have to get real kind overnight.
Quickly.
Very, very, very quickly. I hope that sometimes it's been said that we are at our best when things are at their worst. And maybe we need some sort of a wake-up call like this to pull us together.
Well, I hope so, you know. And
in a small way, I feel the same way.
I hope so, because we can't start with a grandiose. We have to start with the small. We have to start with almost the insignificant. One of the great things that happened to me a couple of years ago was visiting the Holocaust Museum in Washington. And after traversing the corridors of display, coming to the end, the display that really shook me was the display of shoes. Just empty shoes at the end of that exhibit. And those shoes there stood as silent testimonies to the missing people. A shoe. I think we've got to create in our environment today, as we look at Y2K and as we look at acts of incivility growing among us, people being very impatient and being very unkind, what is that one little thing that each person can do to say that I am on the side of being kind to my neighbor because I would want my neighbor to be kind unto me, really to live the golden rule.
And when you experience that, you can actually feel it in your body. You wear a smile on your face.
Yeah.
You know, and you feel good, and you want others to feel good also. And I'm with you. I'd like to spread that as far as possible. I'd like to shift gears a bit and examine trust, justice, and human respect and how that relates to civility. Would we have to surrender more individual freedoms to attain this lofty goal?
See, I don't think that we should put limits on people's freedom or on our freedom itself. I don't think we should impose it's not about laws and not about rules, but it's celebrating who we are as human beings and going as far as with that as possible. But at the same time, having us realize that freedom does not necessarily mean license to do whatever I want to do, because I live in a community of other people. So I should continue to celebrate my freedom. And you know, there's a terrific verse in the Bible that says, whom the Son of Man set free is free indeed. I mean, that's glorious. That means no restraint except love. I mean, the greatest limiting factor in this world, almost paradoxical, is love.
Oh,
You know?
love cures.
Isn't that something?
It does. It does.
In that sense, I believe that we should not limit freedom, but have people come to understand that freedom really means to be all that I can be, but not at the expense of another human being.
There are some people who see these types of the political band-aids. Let's outlaw hate speech. Let's do this. And people are starting to feel, I guess, kind of paranoid or boxed in. And I think there's that natural reaction to that is lashing out, yelling, screaming their ideas, their ideals, and finding that they go home and they feel no one's respecting my opinion, no one's listening to me, and I'm going to hunker down here and take care of me. I think that if possibly, or how do you feel, if we really look at a law or a regulation, that it fits in well with not making this group feel good, making that group feel good, but what works well for all of us.
Well, you see, I believe we live in a society where there is always going to be tension. If it's not acts of incivility, it's going to be something else.
Yeah.
But that great line from the movie Gandhi, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. You know, it just doesn't work by each of us trying to force our way into the arena of the other. It just doesn't work that way. We have got to come back again to that center, and the center that I keep thinking about is the center of who am I as part of this universe. And I think we are losing that sense of who am I as part of the universe. For example, in a family, average American family, you know, there's a television set in maybe 4 rooms.
Every room.
Right? The kid is in his room or her room, the mother and father in their room, there's another television set in the den, and there's another television set in the living room. And you have this tension in the family. So you have people being scattered, even though they're in the same space, and that happens even in our workplace. We are in our little cubicles, even though we work for a large company.
Right.
So we need to recapture again that sense of who we are as part of a larger community.
And we have to do this ourselves.
Yes.
We have to bring it out of ourselves. Yeah. As the last remaining superpower, America imports its needed brain power from around the globe. Has the self-esteem curriculum contributed to the dumbing down of today's students?
Oh, this is so important. You know, in my classes at the university, and I teach in a few different places, I see us trying to cater to so many different people, so many different groups, and not to limit education, because education is a great freedom bandwagon, and it equalizes us all, absolutely. But what we have seen instead of holding the standards high sometimes, and even higher, because people will rise to the level that you want them to rise to.
Are we placating the students and just saying, we'll do this, and when we need smart people, we'll just travel around the world and just pick them up?
I think we're disrespecting our students, and our students are not dumb. We are not dumbing down the curriculum nor dumbing down the students. What really we are doing is dumbing down society. When we believe that we are going to export what we need and not develop that which is here, I think we have lost the battle, because we are saying that what we have is not good enough and we are casting what we have aside. And that is a major problem in our society today.
It is. Yeah. It is. As someone who has lectured and conducted seminars across the U.S., Canada, and as well as abroad, are people longing for more of a courteous way of behaving with one another? And are they willing to be active recipients?
What a noble question. Yes, I think...
I try to make them as noble as possible.
I think there is a sense in which the human spirit, as Aristotle says, the human being at his best is the most noble of animals, you know. But at his worst, he's lower than the lowest beast. And I think there is something in us that aspires to the best in us. Freedom, to have virtue, to be loving, to be kind. But then there are other forces at work in our world, our leaders who mirror the wrong and help and try to suggest to us that if they can do it, we shouldn't do it because we should be punished. They're okay. And we live in a society where the rules are being made to be bent for the rich, for the wealthy, and then a different rule for the poor. And I think the worst one yet, Al, and it's one that I believe will, and I don't want to end on a note like this, but American history has always had moments of incivility. We have always had time when we have lost our way, but we have come back. And the opportunity for us now is to tell the new millennium that we are facing, we are going to come to you with brave eyes, with open hearts, and find our way to civility. Each one of us doing what we can in our small way to say, I am on the side of civility.
Leo, I'm with you on that. And Leo Thorne has been our guest, and I thank Leo for his insight and his lifelong commitment to bringing people together through mutual understanding. And we will pause, and we will be back after a public service message. We'll return with teacher poet Jim O'Rourke. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Don Buchanan, spokesman for SMASH, Sane Motorists Against Stupidity on the Highways. It has often been said that there's a time and a place for everything.
Oh, God. This lipstick is just not my color. Oh, come on, Grandpa, move it.
Make me some money! You guys are killing me! Come on! No. What are you guys doing? You guys are killing me! You're killing me!
There is, in fact, a time and a place for the events you just witnessed, not in your car. Pay attention. Try not to reach your destination head on. Understand?
Welcome back to the Oaklander. With us now is Jim O'Rourke. Jim currently teaches English in Wallington High School and is a Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation teacher poet. Jim is also married to a very good friend and well-known to the Oaklander, B. O'Rourke, and together they are preparing a workshop turning memories into memoirs. Jim has brought a poem or two with us, and we're going to have some fun with Jim right now. Jim, welcome to the Oaklander.
Thanks, Al.
It's getting to be a real family affair, you know?
Right, you're going to have all the kids. We'll call them in from all over the country. They can come here, too.
That's great.
Okay.
That's what public access is all about. Jim, congratulations on the success of the 55th Dad's Night in Ridgewood.
Oh, who told you about Dad's Night?
You did. You did. How did this begin? I'd like to really talk about this. It's a wonderful community thing.
Just before the end of the Second World War in Ridgewood, in the Somerville School District, some fathers got together and thought, you know, we need to create some community here, get to know each other. Father's idea, and got their wives to let them do it. And they wrote, produced, directed, played the music for an original show, skits. Nothing, deep or highly artistic, but mostly parody and fun stuff.
Satire.
And so the dads could get up on the stage and do what they had no business doing, showing off, acting. And it was fun. It was successful. They made a little money. They gave it to the school. The next year, they did it again. They made a little more money. They gave it to the school. And they've been doing it ever since. And we just finished the 55th annual Dad's Night in Ridgewood and made, last count, $12,000 for the school district.
That really is a super accomplishment for people who may be watching out there and not really involved. 55 years is
55
an incredible
years.
amount of time and a commitment to the community for that.
I don't know if there's anything like it in the country. I don't know if there's anything like it anywhere else. There were 100 dads involved, all ages, and from every walk of life. In fact, I haven't got any idea what most of them do. But they all got together, and that's what we have in common. We have the school district in common, we have our kids in common, and so
everybody has fun together. You get to know each other.
And my daughter, down in her school district in Kentucky, she moved to Kentucky about a year ago, and they had to build a new school because the town's growing so quickly. She said, you know what we need in this school to start things off? We need a Dad's Night. And they said, what's She explained it to them, and they said, "But we can't do this." She said, "Yes, we can." So next week, no, this week, the end of this week, tomorrow night maybe, I think it is, they have their final meeting, and they'll be putting on a show in 2 weeks, and it'll be the first annual Dad's Night in Buckner, Kentucky.
Well,
So-
I hope it's half as successful and do a 26-year run with
Yeah.
that. Well, I know that I never met this daughter of yours,
No,
but I know it's
yeah.
good stock, and I know it's going to be a success.
Yeah,
there,
she's
Jim.
got her mother's energy.
So what type of satires and spoofs? Tell me a little about what the show is about there.
All right, there were four skits and some scene shifters too. But the four skits. The first one, where I played Benjamin Guggenheim, was a spoof of the Titanic. Only they did a lot of Somerville School, Ridgewood kind of jokes. The second, well, so we all went down with the ship, of course, but it wasn't a tragedy. It was more a comedy. Rose was lovely. She was about 210 pounds of corporate lawyer, dressed in a just lovely taffeta outfit and a beautiful blonde wig. And she went down with Jack, as it happened in the regular movie, but they were happy. The second one we did was, a wrestling show. They put a ring on the stage and
Something
the
for Jesse
dads
Ventura?
Exactly, feather boa and all. And the dads wore various kinds of costumes and flung themselves about the ring and had a wonderful time. The kids loved it. The third skit was Back to Oz. Dorothy visited the Bradys. She visited me, Samantha, the witch, on the
Elizabeth
from Bewitched.
Montgomery.
Right, that was me. And all of her characters, the Tin Man and the Lion, followed her through these TV sitcoms all the way through the 70s, and then she eventually found her dad, who happened to be a Teletubby. So we had four dads dressed as Teletubbies. Lots of hugs on stage. That was fun.
Does this really kind of bridge a gender gap between the students and the fathers?
Oh, absolutely. Because the kids get to see their fathers doing something it's a little risky, but for a good reason, for them. And they know that the fathers are there for them, that they wouldn't be doing such dumb stuff and standing on the stage and making fools of themselves if it weren't for
this really
them.
ties in the subject that we had with Leo Thorne, is that when you grow up with a sense of belonging, when you grow up with a true sense of that your parent honestly cares and will do anything, put a
Even-
dress on and a
Exactly.
wig, that he's got to love me,
Gotta.
you know?
No other explanation.
And men need to do that. We had a show on our show Alternatives called Men's Work, that we don't know how to be men with each other, you know? So so that kind of really,
There is a lot of bonding among the men, and especially at the party right after the first performance. Good time to get to know each other.
and when you do this work inside the community environment, does it inspire you to write?
I don't think I've written about Dad's Night, but
But I mean the feelings of
the idea,
life and
the idea of being a man and understanding what it is to be a man, I think you can also accomplish through the writing. Being with other men, of course, is very important, and but being able to understand that writing things can help you understand yourself and where you fit in this world as a man.
you really hit that. As
important.
being a man, it's a lot more than just being virile or masculine. It really takes things like loyalty
Yeah.
and honesty, which I think kind of get lost in being crass and rude.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I think it's almost time for a reading, Jim. What do you say?
Okay. Okay.
Not
I
to
can
put
do
you
that.
on the spot, but you're on the spot.
I can do that.
Great.
Okay. Let me say just kind of quickly about how I got into this, because you just don't say, "Gee, I think I'm going to write a poem," but I got started in about 12, 14 years ago And I started just writing things down and saying, oh, that's pretty dumb. I hid it, you know. I put it where most people put their poetry, under the underwear in the drawer, you know, so nobody would see it. But I did discover that I felt pretty good about doing it and saying, well, gee, I got something down there, you know, I got something, I've made something, and it's tangible.
It's me.
And maybe it's me. I wasn't sure. So I said, well, you know, okay. And then I got a chance through the Dodge Foundation to join some other teachers in a roundtable workshop down in Bloomfield. First one, I think, it was in Bloomfield. And the Dodge Foundation pays for these and pays poets to lead teachers in discussions about poems and just in reading and reactions to them in a very non-threatening, easy environment. And they, if you wish, you can also write at those sessions and between those sessions, and then come down and say, well, I wrote this, you know, what do you think about this? So I had a chance to put some of it out in the open in a place where I wasn't too much afraid what people would say. So when people didn't say, oh, that stinks, you know, I said, well, maybe it's not too bad, you know. At the end of the session, we were invited, all the teachers were invited, if they wished, to send some samples to Morristown, where they would have a panel of judges, and they would decide if any of those people would be asked to read. I took 4 or 5 and I sent them in. I just took a chance. I said, as I had said from the beginning, these aren't very good, but take a chance, okay? Surprisingly, I was called, would you like to come down to Princeton and read? I said, me? You got the right guy?
Yeah.
I said, yeah, okay. So I gathered my courage, you know, my stomach started to jump, and I think it jumped for about 4 weeks until I finally had to get down to Princeton, and it jumped all the way through the reading, but I got through it, and people said, oh, that was pretty nice, you know. So I said, wow, maybe they're not so bad, you know. I was encouraged after that to send some in for publication, and for God's sake, they were published. So I said, maybe there's something to this, you know. Maybe
Now you start wearing a jacket with patches on.
Well, yeah, right. So I say, so you know, actually, what experience was telling me was what I tell my students in school. I say, that's good. You know, it's try that. Let's see what you've got. You know, let everybody hear it. There's something good about that. There's something, you know, it's a little bit of yourself. You've said something about your experience. You say something about your life, and it's good to do that, because you make something, you construct something out of sort of vague feelings and maybe impulses and emotions that are going around that you don't completely understand, particularly when you're young.
Sure.
But even when you're an adult, you think you know, you think you're finished, you think you know yourself, but you're really not. We're all works in progress. How else would you explain people's sudden bursts of rage, or people's sudden bursts of happiness, or, you know, discontent, or vague feelings of sorrow, you know, like waking up in the morning. You know, sometimes you wake up in the morning and before you know what you're not happy about, you know you're not happy. Suppose you talk to kids in school about breaking up with their girlfriend or boyfriend. Terrible experience. You think it's going to be the end of the world. You wake up in the morning, you feel lousy. You don't know why. For 15 seconds, you don't know why, and then you realize why you feel bad. But the feeling comes before the realization. What's here, it's here first, then it gets up here. Well, this is what happens with poetry. You've got stuff here, and you got to process it through here, out through your fingers, onto the page, and then you can look and you say, all right, now I know what that was about, right? We all see things. Every day we see things going on around us and going by and happening, and we click on them and say, oh yeah, what's, and you notice them. And maybe there's an image in the back of your head. You don't know what it was about, but it's there. You know? Christmas, I was working outside, and a van went by. The guy driving the van, he's all alone in this big van, like a Voyager, you know, one of those, a caravan.
Sure.
And in the back window, on a hanger, was a red dress like my little girls used to wear, maybe like a little size 3, you know, size 4. And it was red, and I think velvet, with lace around the collar, lace around the sleeves. And it was on a hanger in the rear window, and it was going like this, see. So I watched that van go by, and I said, There's something there. I haven't written it down yet. It's still in the back of my head. I know I'm going to write about that dress. I know I'm going to write about that guy in the van and that dress
Brought out a feeling.
dancing in the window because I just noticed it. I know there's something to it. I just don't know what it is yet. But it's probably about my girls when they were little. Now,
And,
the oldest
you'll
one's
discover that one
37, 38 years old, but I'm thinking, you know, when that dress went by, and just talking to you, I'm starting to develop this idea. I'm thinking of Christine, you know, 38 years old, and that there it went. She was dancing by, you know, in that van. Something. There's something there.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I know if I saw it, if I start and I sit down and I start to write about it, I'll understand it. Because writing is a construction. You construct experience out of what you, out of emotions and out of feelings and out of what's going on inside you.
Well,
and you figure it out.
Our clock is ticking,
clock is
and
ticking.
I'd love to hear some of your work, Jim.
All right, this is I put this down. I put this up here in the front of the book. How to write a poem, and this was back in 1997. One of the first workshops I was challenged. We were challenged to do this. So I was driving down to my to meet my wife, who was down the shore already. I was in the car, and it was a rainy day, and windows kept fogging up, and I was supposed to write this poem, and I said, how am I going to do this? You know, anyway, so this is what I wrote, How to Write a Poem. Hold a mirror up to the breath of your life. It will cloud over. Take your finger and write until something comes clear. So there's a little metaphor in there, you know?
Very
Mirror,
provoking.
Fog, you know, kids do this all the time, don't they, in the car? Yeah. Draw a picture, draw a face, you know. You can see how they feel because they either make it a smile or they make it a frown, you know. And they draw on the windows. In a way, you draw on the fog of your experience to create something or to construct something and to come up with something that makes sense.
It's kind of like creating your own reality and watch it evaporate. Also.
Better write this down, Hal. I think there's a poem in that. How about we write about family? All right, and I wrote this a couple of years ago about my father. I guess my relationship with my father was pretty good, but had rough spots. And my father's life had some rough spots too. And this is one that maybe hints on those, on some of the rough spots. This is my father's old jacket. And I remember this jacket. It's just the way I describe it, this jacket. My father's old jacket. I remember by the back door on a peg a jacket, blue and white plaid with black lines, waist length, button front, flap pockets, my father's, big. He used to put it on to take out the ashes from the shiny black stove in the kitchen. In '43, it moved with us to another house, to a hook, by another back door. But he put it on less and less. There was a war on. He was tired. Sometimes he fell asleep in his chair. Sometimes his cigarettes burned down to his fingertips. More and more my mother put it on before she opened the door to carry the white dusted cinders from the basement furnace into the chill wind. The sleeves hung past her fingertips onto the bales of the cold ash buckets. One day when I passed it on the stairs on its hook in the hall, I saw its cuffs were frayed, worn, ragged, and it looked old-fashioned and shabby. It might have fit, but I never put it on. I kind of like that.
Leaves the reader wondering what your thoughts were.
Well, okay.
I'd like to shift gears a little bit and kind of touch on what you're teaming up with your wife, Bea, and Dr. Haddon in the workshop called Turning Memories to Memoirs. What inspired the idea, and what will that encompass, Jim?
Well, my experience with writing led me to invite Bea to come to a workshop with me down in Cape May a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago. And while I went to a poetry workshop, she took a workshop called Turning Memory into Memoir. She didn't think she could write, but ever since that day, she never thought she could write that. She always knew she could write speeches, She could inspire people to give her money and to come and work at the center for her.
And quite well.
And quite well. But she never tried writing that kind of writing, evocative writing, something that that tries to express your experience and the emotion of your experience, the reality of experience.
A literary sense of smelling the roses?
A literary sense of smelling the roses. Just stop right now. Good, good. Stop and smell the roses. Slow down for a second. Figure out what it was that happened. Maybe when you something's been going around in the back of your head. People have all kinds of memories about when they were kids, when good things happened, bad things happened, and they're still there, and they're waiting to be explained. They're waiting to be translated. They're waiting to be reconstructed into some kind of a building that you can walk around, walk into, look around, and understand. And this is what can be done if you can sit down and write memoir. It can help people to do that, and also, when people are finished explaining what's their own experience to themselves, they also have constructed something that they can show to others, to their children, to their spouses, and leave something. There's a man I know who was a fighter pilot in World War II. He's 75 years old. He was 19 years old when he was shot down. Christmas Eve, he was in a prison camp in Germany. He knew it was Christmas Eve because he had scratched marks on his shoe since the day he was shot down, the last day he knew the date.
Sure.
And he knew it was Christmas Eve. And the men who were all in solitary confinement, because it was his first night in a prison camp, and they always did that, kept them in solitary confinement, they started singing Silent Night, and he could hear them. And he started singing too. He never told that story until he started turning his memories into memoir. And now he's got this much and of his life experience, that in particular on paper. He gave me that in particular to look at myself. And he's going to be able to show that to his kids and his grandchildren. And
they'll get a better sense of who
he was, and of course who they are.
Yes,
you know?
yes, because they're his children.
Who your father was is part of who you are, and who you are is part of who your kids are.
I know my father very seldom talks about his experiences in World War II because it's very painful for him. I'm going to try to get him to start writing. Jim,
why not?
As our time runs low, you're going to be doing this coming up next year.
Yes,
I don't want to run out of time.
We'll be doing this in the first time we're going to do it is 3 Friday nights at the end of September, the beginning of October. We're going for the 17th, the 24th of September, and October 1st, and for an hour and a half each session. And just a TGIF night. Come and relax, and let's see what you can do. Our initial plans, we'd like to have session 1 the way we were. You can bring a photograph, something that means something to you, and we can write about what happened, the planetary experience around that photograph, and get people to turn that photo into memoir. The second session, perhaps a favorite song that you have, our song, B and I could write probably all night about My Funny Valentine. It's always been our song. We write about that. The music can remind us of places, special events, and things that really have touched our lives deeply. So we get people to write about that. So with those 2 starting points, we should have some success. And then we hope to be able to get people to write, to ask people if they'd like to write a love letter. And we'll model that. And there are lots and lots of good love letters out there which people could look at as a start. So I don't think this is going to be something that's threatening to people. I think it will really help people to do what we've been talking about,
yes.
to take to structure, through writing, structure their experience into a form that they can see, walk around, look at, and understand.
It's kind of like having a rusty gate in the recesses of your mind, and every now and then you have to oil it, and so it doesn't squeak, and you get to really exercise that muscle, and when it becomes strong, you have that internal kind of compass that makes you a better person.
Oh, I think, no doubt, it can make you a better person, because, you know, the better you understand yourself, the more you're able to be present to others.
Yeah.
You know.
Jim, we're getting near the end there. I'd love
can't
to hear
believe it.
another 25 minutes goes quick, huh?
Yeah, 25
And
minutes.
be glad it wasn't Andy Warhol, because you'd only have 15 minutes.
Well, let's see. I don't know which way to go, but let's try. Here, okay. When I was 16, there was the guy across the street. I lived in
We've got 2 minutes, Jim.
Fort Lee all my life. Never got to New York City. Can you believe it? So this guy took me there. This is Exodus, okay? See, Exodus. You can't get lost in New York. Uptown's north, downtown's south, east and west go to the rivers from Fifth. You told me this. You called to me in captivity. You, my neighbor, gave me my first job in the city. You trusted me to muscle through the city's swaggering traffic. You showed me how to park in small spaces, how to figure a tip. You knew the Village, Union Square, Chinatown, the Bowery. You knew why they called it an egg roll. You showed me the freight elevators, the only way to the lofts on the Sabbath. You showed me the work, how to be on my own with Chilean sailors, how to measure men, and to believe I could do it. You bought me my first egg cream. I drank deeply into a thirst you knew I had. You, my Moses, younger than my father, but sooner gray, smiling, eyes open and bright, gone before I knew I should thank you for my life.
That was wonderful, Jim.
Thank you.
I love that.
Thank you. I hope, and I think everybody's got somebody like that in their lives. But I had to
mentor.
I had to finally write it down. Yeah, mentor. Yeah.
That was wonderful.
Yeah, nice.
Well, Jim, I tell you, the time does go quick. I want to thank you for being our guest this evening, and it really was a pleasure to have you on the show. And all of our love to you and to be and all the volunteers at the Center for Food Action in Mahwah. So please come back and see us again, Jim.
Thank you, Al. Thanks a lot, and thanks for those
Great.
metaphors you were throwing at me. I'm going to use them.
It's my job. Please, and no charge. We'll be back in a few moments. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce a very talented musician, a musical guest that will be featured on our next edition of Alternatives, seen on this channel at 7 p.m. each Sunday. Such guests as New Jersey State Senator Gerald Cardinale, poet Oki Chenoweth, student films by Film Shorts, and a host of other topics have been featured. We hope you will give OKTV's Alternatives a try. And now, here is guitarist, composer Aaron Leone from his collection, The Magician. Well, that brings us to the close of our program. I hope that you've enjoyed our guests for their wisdom, talent, and insight on the future of our culture and society. I'd also like to thank Carolyn Karg for suggesting such a show on this important topic with regards for us all to give some serious thought on the dangerous ramifications of escalating hostilities, be it driving on the roads, talking on the phone, or just waiting to pay on the express line. Let's lighten up a bit for our own sake, because you know that old Y2K is just around the bend, and we should direct our attentions a little closer to our neighbors. And don't forget to tune into Alternatives, 7 p.m. on Sundays. This month, guitarist, composer Aaron Leone. This show is a must-see, folks. And I want to thank all the new OKTV crew members. They're doing a great job learning and producing our shows. And lastly, we urge our viewers to contact us to share your interests, your talents, your hobbies on our program. So we're just about out of time. So for the Oaklander, I'm Al DiGiacomo. Thank you for watching.
Left, right, left, right, left, right. There. Now, how hard was that? Use your turn signals! What's wrong with you people? Why do I have to keep telling you to use the... No, you make me want... Ah! Ah!